Greetings again, and again, it's not for me to say very much. We've got 5 really interesting people and really interesting companies, and they're going to tell you why they're interesting and where they're going in the next year. So from the far end, McCann from GIST, which is developing very interesting software. Clark Easter, the founder and CEO of Trifecta Global Infrastructure Solutions. Ricardo Reyes of Tesla, of whom you've heard before. John Waller, the CEO of X1 Technologies. David Perryman, President and CEO of Zirus. Rhymes with virus, but it's a Z, as I was told. Zirus. Okay. TA, first of all, what are you up to, and why should we be excited?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to be part of the FiReStarter program. So first I would ask you to ask yourself a question of why are you here? And my contention is that we are all here to make connections with people, to learn about new contacts, to ultimately figure out if I can help you accelerate your idea and you can help accelerate mine. And imagine secondarily that there was a thought bubble that felt sort of floated above all of our heads that would tell you where I worked, what I did, what I think about, what I look like on Twitter, Facebook, who I know, and who you know. We're essentially trying to build software that does that. So GIST really is focused on bringing together all my contacts, putting them in the cloud, being able to help me organize and rank to figure out who's most important, then going to the web to do all those searches that we would normally do anyway, searching 50,000 news sources, 20 million blogs, Facebook, Twitter, to give me a 360-degree view of the people I'm interacting with. And now imagine I could do that not just for the people in this room, but everybody in my contact list every day. And I could focus on who in my network is doing something I need to be aware of, and I could then focus that inside of my workflow. So inside of Microsoft Outlook, inside my mail client, inside my CRM application, or inside my mobile device. So every time I'm interacting with other people, I know about them in a way that I can accelerate their ideas and they can accelerate mine. That's GIST.
So explain it to me. I don't quite understand it yet. Let's imagine this is my constituency. These are the people I deal with in different ways, in different fields. Some are friends, and some are contacts, and some are friends of friends. How, on that screen in front of me, do I keep track of what they're doing and know when they're, I don't want to be cynical about this, but when an individual in that group is useful to me, or I might want to be in touch with them?
So it just brings together all of your contact lists first. So Outlook, Gmail, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any place you have your contacts, they all get put together in the cloud, number 1. Step 2 is we then look at the interaction history you've had with those people and start to rank and organize them. T.A. McCann is a person who works for a company called GIST, et cetera. People, company, person, company, person, company. And then we look at the interaction history. So if you and I send a lot of email to each other, you're probably more important than not. If you and I are connected on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, you're probably more important than not. And we use that algorithm to try and figure out which people and companies are probably most important to you in your network. Then we use that person and company to go out to the web and discover a rich profile, so finding all those profile attributes, and then the associated content. So to answer your question about the views, the first view is a news about my network, and that you could see that on the web or you could see that on your iPhone. The second is in context. So when you're responding to an email from me, you're going to see the gist of me or vice versa, bringing me all of that related information in context of my interaction with you in email.
So when I send you an email, it's going to say TA, and he also knows these guys here, and he's involved in these industries and whatever.
And these are the last 4 emails we sent, and these are the last 3 attachments we sent, and these are the people that we know at the same company. All automatically and totally passively.
Okay, and where do we stand with the company? Is it up there, and can I do that now? Can I download your software and do it?
Yeah, GIST.com, and we've been around for about 2 years. I started this inside of Vulcan Capital, Paul Allen's venture firm, and Paul's an investor in the company. We're in open beta now, and so we're really focused at relationship-centric professionals, people who make their business in knowing other people and knowing as much as they can about those people and knowing about their ideas and otherwise. So go to GIST.com. You can download, use it on the web. You can use it inside of Outlook, Lotus Notes, and there'll be a couple of other email applications coming out very shortly. iPhone, Salesforce, it's all integrated with those applications already.
So it's a kind of sophisticated LinkedIn.
It's, yeah, LinkedIn plus. You said it, yeah. LinkedIn on steroids, as a lot of people call it. Or it's LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is extremely good at building profiles. We have all a profile on LinkedIn, but there's no good content. And much of the way that we build relationships is around content. So it's a contact, but it's contact plus content delivered in context.
And finally, from me anyway, how do you make money out of it?
We'll be charging a subscription-based service. So we focus on business professionals who are looking to exchange dollars and cents for time or insight.
Okay, thank you very much. Clark of TrifectaGIS.
Yes. Trifecta Global Infrastructure Solutions is focused, or was originally focused on the infrastructure space. Western countries have huge amounts of stuff that we have built up over the years. We average in the US and most other Western countries about $15,000 per capita of roads, of sewers, of water pipes, of school buildings, et cetera. All of that is constantly deteriorating. All of it requires constant maintenance. So if you take a city of 100,000 people, that city will have 1.5 billion of assets, and they'll be spending about $70 million a year taking care of it. Up to now, there is no good way of taking care of it. There's huge friction involved in the process. We believe that about 30% of the money spent in infrastructure maintenance is wasted. What you have going on right now in the world is a huge paradigm shift. Engineering in the Western world for 2,000 years has been based on a linear paradigm. You had 0 points, and you measured how far off the 0 point you were. So if you look at all of our roads, et cetera, all of our utility drawings, they're all in a linear paradigm. That paradigm is not good for efficiency.
Let me hold on. What's a linear paradigm?
What's that?
Explain what a linear paradigm is.
Well, linear paradigm is the system of having a 0 point and measuring how far off that 0 point you are. So for example, up until a few years ago, if I knew where a pothole was on a road, I would tell the person who was supposed to fix it, you go 1,000 clicks or 1,000 meters or something from the 0 point on that road, and you'll find the pothole, and there's a 3-meter offset. Geospatial positioning is totally changing that.
Yeah, sure.
Because I can now give somebody a longitude, latitude. However, when you look at infrastructure management solutions today, they're all built on the original linear paradigm. They're still legacy. They may have some bolt-on geospatial capabilities, but no one has actually taken full advantage of the geospatial paradigm. We are. We have built a platform which its purpose is to automate the whole process chain of infrastructure management, all the way from call center to the technicians in the field with cell phones who are getting dispatched. And we're taking advantage of the geospatial platform by basically making an interface that's like a video game. If you think about infrastructure, 80% of the people in it don't even have a high school diploma. You have guys fixing potholes, retarring roofs, cutting the grass, picking up trash, et cetera. All of the legacy asset management systems, they look like Oracle financial packages. Doesn't work too well for the average infrastructure worker. So we wanted to build a package that was basically highly visual, highly immersive, and yet at the same time we're integrating highly complex imagery. So for example, all of you are familiar with Google Street View. Not too useful for engineers. So we've developed with a technology partner a 32 megapixel version that is fully geo-referenced. So I can actually look, I can zoom in, I can see cracks in the street, I can measure a sidewalk section that I want to replace, literally right within the 360 video. I can integrate LiDAR, I can integrate satellite imagery, I can integrate laser data on road condition. So we can bring in huge amounts of information all within a browser. And being in a browser, we're what's known as a rich internet application. We can automate everything all within a browser on cell phone or laptop or desktop. Now, just to give you an understanding of this, everybody here today knows a situation where the street nearby has been repaved, and 60 days later, somebody else digs it up. The water department, the cable company, something like that. Every time that happens, that is a $500,000, multi-million-dollar mistake. By bringing everything into a geospatial context, we can in fact promote collaboration. In our beta city in New Zealand, they've saved $1 million in the first year of usage just by bringing in collaboration. by the utilities and the city beginning to be able to, I jokingly call it online dating for construction. So if I'm Verizon and I want to put a fiber down a street, we put it into our system, they upload it, that they want to put this particular time frame and what their flexibility is. The city water department suddenly says, gee, we got to dig up that street too. Verizon instantly gets a message for collaboration. Everybody cost share, dollars flow right to the bottom line. That's just one example. That one item alone will save the US $4 billion a year based upon our initial data points of what's possible.
So let's imagine there's a pothole, 100 feet up the road there. How will your system deal with that differently from the old system, which I imagine was somebody calling an office in, I don't know, Los Angeles, and the borough engineers department sending somebody out here and somebody eventually rolling up their sleeves and digging a hole or filling in a hole or whatever. How does your system deal with that in a different way?
Well, what we're seeing as best practice from other parts of the world is literally trucks go down streets once a year with lasers underneath, and they literally measure the cracking and the rutting of the roads, and they use predictive modeling to tell city staff which roads need to be repaved in the coming year. So by optimizing management using predictive modeling, you can do this on water pipes as well, you can make a huge difference. But one of the things I wanted to bring up today is literally this week, we have just unveiled our ability to plug environmental sensors, real-time environmental sensors into our infrastructure platform. I want you to realize this. This will shock most of you. But today, 95% of all monitoring, environmental monitoring that is done, it's all manual. It's guys in moon suits taking little glass vials and sending them off to laboratories for weeks later getting results back. There is no real-time monitoring that takes place. The EPA in this country in 2006 said they desperately needed a sensor network of monitoring. We literally this past week have just implemented the first EPA sensory network measuring nitrate runoff from agricultural operations at a site in Iowa. This is the first time that nitrates have been measured in real time. Now I want you to think about this. I grew up on the Chesapeake Bay. For 40 years they've been trying to clean it up. They all know there's nitrate in the bay, but it's, quote, a non-point pollutant, meaning we don't know where it's coming from. So there's no accountability. In our model, we're going to be able to place nitrate sensors up every stream, every fork in the river, and we're going to be able to start to go, it's coming off of this site. So this kind of real-time monitoring is going to dramatically change the environmental picture. In particular, environmental science today has no outcomes database, meaning there is no cause and effect relationship. Part of my background has been working in disease management and also in educational-driven outcomes, and I want to bring the same approach into the environmental field of being able to track in real time exactly what's going on, of being able to model very sophisticated 2D and three-dimensional, measure pollutants crossing a control plane, and actually allowing environmental firms to start to go, okay, here's where we injected this bacteria into this site, and here's what you see in terms of the three-dimensional modeling and the vectors starting to be decreased at the control plane. That will bring science into the field. And for all of you who are here, your children now are being born with 300 man-made chemicals at a minimum in their umbilical blood. We are born pre-polluted now. If you don't think this is an issue, I've looked at the disease management, the educational trends. A lot of these pollutants are actually dumbing down our population. They do affect IQ. They do affect brain power. Okay. And we're moving into a most critical period in our history, and many of our citizens are in fact starting to be seriously damaged from environmental contamination. Okay. We must start addressing this.
Thank you very much. Ricardo, Tesla is here every year. Where does it now stand?
We have, on Earth Day, we announced that we've now driven 4 million electric miles. We've got over 1,000 roadsters, 1,200 roadsters on the road now. And I'm very happy to be here, actually. I usually speak before the test rides or before the test drives. So I'm usually the obstacle before people can get into the roadster. And today, I know it happened last night, so it's nice to not have that pressure on me right now. It's going really well. We're the roadster in a relatively short period of time. Tesla went from trying to show that an electric car was possible, not only an electric car, but a premium electric car that could compete with the best cars in the world. We went from a lot of people naysaying that possibility to actually producing the car, getting them on the road, to the point where I was at the Frankfurt Motor Show a few months ago, and lo and behold, Audi and BMW and Toyota and a lot of other folks were touting their electric cars of the future. Since this is a private audience, I'll go ahead. I usually don't say this, but Audi came out and announced one of their electric cars that would have less range, less power than the car we currently produce, and they said they would have it out in about 2 or 3 years. So things are going pretty well.
I should know this, but I don't. Can I go to a showroom and buy one?
You can. We initially, and I don't know that we've done the best job of communicating this, but there used to be, when we were producing the cars, a long wait list. What we've done over time is starting to manage the best. So the short answer is yes. The best way to think of the Roadster is kind of our trailblazer for the Model S. Everything we're learning about producing the car, selling the car, what consumers want in the car is stuff we're going to use for the Model S. We started with kind of a
But it's on the market in mass production.
It's not only on the market in mass production. You can literally go into the store and purchase one today, which we didn't have before. Before it was an order service, but now we've gotten to the point where we can kind of predict the market.
Where are we in the argument or the debate or the question over whether hybrids will be the way forward rather than pure electric?
Well, I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah, go on.
Hybrids, we actually looked at the possibility of starting with a hybrid automobile. The problem with a hybrid is the way I think of it, the way I think we view it at Tesla is hybrid technology is a bridge technology. It's a good technology, and it was a good way for established auto manufacturers to bridge into what was going to become hopefully electric mobility, but not leave their legacy investments totally behind. I think it was really difficult for an established car company to say, let's put aside everything we've been doing, everything we've perfected for the last 50 or 100 years, and just make this gamble the way a small company could.
Good. John.
Thanks. X1 is really, was created to deal with information. And I think everyone here would probably agree that we're no longer in the information age, we're in the information overload age. And there's just too much data, too much information being created from too many sources and being stored in too many repositories, whether it's for a consumer within an enterprise, or now obviously there's a tremendous amount of movement in the cloud. And if you just think about the massive amount of information being created just while I speak, I'm quite sure there's quite a lot of emails, PowerPoints being developed just within this room, Twitter feeds, things like that. It's a massive problem. Organizations, the average knowledge worker spends about 25% of their time looking for documents and information. And if they're not looking for it, they're spending time recreating it, a document or a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint that they've already done at some point before. So X1 deals with that problem of information overload. And the way we deal with it, we firmly believe that the solution is going to be a search-based solution. And so we're developing a search-based application and platform to deal with that. And history has proven that that is the way you deal with massive amounts of information. If you look at the World Wide Web in the early 90s, before it was really commercialized, Yahoo was there. They had, Yahoo stands for yet another hierarchical officious oracle, I believe. And the main navigation mechanism was basically in a file directory methodology where you'd click on entertainment and then movies and comedies. And as the web began to be more and more commercialized, that system broke down, and you had to really approach the web as the entry point really turned out to be search. And so Yahoo search became more prevalent, and then of course Google, we all know what happened with that.
So how will I notice your search on my screen? What will I be able to do with your stuff that I can't do at the moment?
Okay, so what we do is we unify all sources of data, regardless where it resides. So whether it's on your hard drive on your laptop or desktop, whether it's on within an enterprise collaboration software like SharePoint or email archiving, which is a growing business with all of Sarbanes-Oxley and compliance needs, to cloud-based solutions. So right now, the way in which you probably would find what you're looking for is open up your Outlook and search within Outlook. You would open up SharePoint, go and log into your local SharePoint within your enterprise, search for a document. You might have to open up Semantic Enterprise Vault's application because the General Counsel's office has demanded that you archive your email. So we unify all of that information through one, we call it a single pane of glass. So regardless where your information resides, no matter what type of information that is, we allow you to search on it very, very rapidly in a very robust way, preview what you're looking at, and then take very content-specific action on that.
Good, thank you. David, you have a task of explaining.
Yeah, this is a good one. So Zirus is an antiviral company. So we're going after viruses.
Viruses in the body.
Viruses in the body, yes. We have what I call a two-legged stool right now for infectious disease. We have vaccines that work really well for viruses that don't change much, but it's been over 25 years, close to 30 years since HIV was discovered, and there's still no effective vaccine. We've got the age-old common cold. We have bioterror, where we couldn't possibly vaccinate against something we don't know what it's going to be. We have SARS popping out, Ebola, all these threats that vaccines just can't address. So that's our spot. So the other leg of the stool is traditional antivirals. So these are drugs that one way or the other interact with the virus and block the virus, either its proteins or its nucleic acids. So those are important, but they don't work very well for very long because viruses, unlike us, we have 2 kids and we nurture them. Viruses have billions, and the whole goal is to evolve. They're the most evolved things arguably on the planet. So they get past that. So what we do is rather than those approaches, we focus on the machinery in our cells. See, viruses, they're not really living. They have to get in our cells and hijack our machinery, like a car factory. If you block the machinery to make the car, you can stop the cars. They don't come out anymore. So we have a technology called the gene trap that allows us to efficiently find those things that the virus needs to hijack. Then we make the drugs. And since those drugs don't interact with the virus directly, they should be more durable, harder for the virus to mutate around. And the other key thing is that viruses have evolved to use common pathways, the same machine inside our cell factory. And if we block one thing, we can potentially block Ebola, HIV, and flu. So those things that we couldn't anticipate before, we potentially could have off-the-shelf stockpiled drugs.
So your product sucks the virus into the human cell so it can't breed and spread its offspring around that mutate around the antiviral.
Close, but not quite.
Well, you explain it.
We don't suck the virus in the cell. It's going to go in the cell because that's the factory it uses to reproduce itself, because it can't reproduce without our cells. So what we do is block the proteins in the cells that the virus uses to reproduce itself. Just like our cells normally use these processes, viruses just hijack those. They pirate them in order to reproduce themselves. So we go after those.
And where do you now stand in that process, and what's going to happen, I don't know, in the next year?
Okay, well, the trick and the problem with biotechnology in general is it takes a long time off a neat concept to have meaningful drugs. So since we're going after the host, things that drugs have already been made to, these proteins in our cells, the drugs we take address these proteins and modulate them so that our headache goes away or our blood pressure goes down. We know that the virus uses the same protein because our gene trap technology has found it. We get that drug, then we test it, and it works on viruses. So the advantage is that drug's already been in the clinic, it's already been in you and I or other people, and it's known to be safe. So then we can push that drug very rapidly into the FDA and other places to get that drug approved. So we have 2 compounds that we've done just that on, one for flu and one that blocks rhinovirus, the cause of the common cold. And we would expect in the rhinovirus realm, if it holds up, because science is science. But if it holds up within about 6 to 9 months, we should be in people trying to stop the virus that causes the common cold.
Good. Gentlemen, terrific, all of you. Good luck. Thank you very much.